The family cemetery plots were not sentimental, they were inventory. I caught my daughter's husband listing our graves to strangers, starting with my wife's spot. Before we dive deeper, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're tuning in from. I am 70, a grandfather twice over, and I have outlived interest in small talk. My name is Harvey. My wife's name was Ruth. Maple Grove Memorial sits on a shallow hill 5 minutes from our old bungalow, the place with the crooked porch light I never fixed because Ruth loved how it leaned. 50 years ago, my father bought 8 plots in a neat row, the kind of old-fashioned purchase men made when they believed tomorrow could be organized with a receipt. He worked the foundry, saved quietly, and said, "We'll go home together, no one scattered." We were poor as a broom handle then, but those plots made the family feel wealthy in a strange way, like we owned a line in the earth no one could cut. In that row, there is my father, my mother, Ruth's parents, and Ruth herself. There remains an open place for me, held between 2 little limestone markers I set myself, and 2 more for future generations, reserved, not because I am controlling, but because I grew up on the idea that family stays close enough to be found. That was the promise. Ruth died 3 years ago. I am still not done saying her name. I visit her twice a week with coffee, because old men are allowed to be foolish. I brush off leaves. I read her crossword clues. I tell her about Liam's guitar practice, about Sophie's science fair volcano that boiled sugar onto the stove and gave Megan a panic. On one of those visits, I noticed the little bronze vase on Ruth's marker was missing. That vase sat to the right side like a handshake, and I noticed the empty screw hole because I made that marker with a friend on a slow Wednesday, cast, patina, polish. I am a man who knows the weight of metal and the quiet thud of something wrong. I did not think of crime, at first. I thought of teenagers chasing a dare. I told the groundskeeper when I saw him. He wiped his nose and said he would look into it. That would have been the end of it if not for what came next, a photograph, sent to my phone by a friend from church who is all thumbs and curiosity. The picture was from a local Facebook group where folks exchange anything from bean can labels to old pianos. It was of a cemetery map, the public kind they keep in a plexiglass frame near the front office. Someone had circled section B, row 3, and written, 4 prime plots. Shade. Easy access. Private sale. Then there was a phone number with a burner's caution and an emoji I will not forget, a smiley face with $signs for eyes. The style of the arrows, thick, quick strokes, looked like the way my son-in-law writes grocery lists, jabbing from above like he is spearing a problem. I looked at the photo for a long time. Even if I had been wrong, I would have known because the half-circle drawn around the row looked like a lopsided grin I had seen on our refrigerator whiteboard 100 times. Troy was here. Buy milk. The fists clenched in me so tight my knuckles whitened, but my voice, when I called the number from my landline, was calm. I am interested in the plots, I said. Are they near the big oak? A text came back almost immediately, yes. Beautiful shade, prime corner. Can meet and show you. Cash discount. I asked for photographs. A minute later, I received 3, a close-up of a grass rectangle with the bronze vase hole I knew, the office map again with the row marked cleaner this time, and a 3rd photograph that made my breath hitch. It was Ruth's marker covered with a moving blanket, just the edge of her name showing where the blanket slipped. Are you peeking out like a whisper? I did not confront anyone that night. I made tea and let the kettle hiss until it ran itself quiet. When you are old, you learn that not every wrong demands a roar. Some require inventory, facts, dates, signatures. After I slept badly for 2 hours and watched the clock for 5, I called my lawyer, a woman named Darla who has known me since she paid for her first year at law school by waiting tables at Benny's. She is the kind of lawyer who reads every word and then the footnotes on the words. I told her what I had, and she stopped me only once, to tell me to breathe. "Send me the screenshots," she said. "And the number. Do not contact them again. Do not show them anger. That is a piece you must save." "My wife," I said, and then I could not talk. "I know," she said, softening. "There are rules, even in death there are rules. And then there are state statutes. Let me make calls." If you have never seen how bureaucracy can rise to goodness on a long day, you might think the only people in offices are indifferent. I learned that week that cemetery law is a strange braided thing: property rights, consumer protection, and the kind of old etiquette that used to be settled with a minister's throat clearing. Darla mapped it out for me over a diner sandwich. Maple Grove, though privately owned, falls under state burial regulations that require any transfer of interment rights to be approved by the cemetery and, in many cases, a notarized consent from living next of kin. That includes me and my daughter, Megan, who is married to the man with arrows in his handwriting. Illegal resale can be charged as fraud, Darla said. If they forged signatures, that is a separate felony. If they moved or disturbed any ornamentation like your wife's vase, we can add vandalism and trespass of a sepulchre. And if the cemetery has been complicit, if they were taking a cut, we shine a very bright light. How much light? I asked. Attorney General's office light, she said, stirring her coffee enough to make the spoon ring. Consumer Protection Bureau. State Cemetery Board. We create a neat stack of paper and invite the right people to turn the pages. But Harvey, I need you to understand, this will hit your daughter, too. I understood more than I wanted. Megan is my only child. I held her first pigtail between two fingers and cut it on the back steps while Ruth scolded me that I had made it crooked. I taught her to ride a bike down Westinghouse Street, running with a steadying hand on the seat until she pedaled into her own balance and looked back to see she was alone. When she was 10, she fixed the doorbell with me and declared she was an engineer. When she was 30, she married Troy. There are men you do not like on sight, and then there are men you try to like because your daughter is holding his hand. Troy is a salesman with a long smile. He can charm a wall. He calls everyone, sir, in a way that makes the word mean, yesterday. Every time he was in my house, I locked my desk drawer out of habit. He had a way of touching things like he was estimating their price. I did not tell Megan what I had found. Not yet. Darla warned me, if you tip your hand too soon, they will sanitize their devices, cancel the posts, do their tidy little dances, and put you in a he said she said that will make a judge rub his temples. Let's catch them in the act. She told me to keep going to Maple Grove as usual. She asked if I had any paperwork at home, the deeds, the old purchase documents. My father's papers are in a slim lockbox with 3 rubber bands and a smell of old envelopes. There, folded into a creased triangle, was a deed of interment rights from 1970, signed by my father, by Ruth's father, and by Maple Grove's original owner, a man named Fletcher whose signature swoops like a stingray. The deed listed Section B, Row 3, plots 1 through 8, with a note in my father's handwriting, for family. No exceptions. I made photocopies, slipped the original back gently, and brought the copies to Darla. She whistled softly. This is clean, she said. Old, but clean. Who kept it like this? My father, I said. He saved paper like it was bread. While Darla called the state, I played the old man. I texted the number again, I will meet you. My name is Calvin. It is not. We arranged to meet at Maple Grove on a Thursday, 10 o'clock, because Calvin said he wanted to see the view. I wore my brown coat and a hat that Ruth always said made me look like I was going fishing. I had a small voice recorder in my breast pocket and Darla's plaque number on speed dial. To my left, behind the U's, sat a silver sedan with two men from the Attorney General's office pretending to be workmen writing down license plates. I never thought my life would stretch to this kind of theater. I walked to Ruth, touched the top of her marker with my fingers just enough to feel the cool, and then stood back in the way of a man who is simply visiting. I held my breath once, like you do before a dive. Troy arrived with the bouncing gait he uses when he wants to look friendly. He wore a navy sport coat and sunglasses that made him think he was inconspicuous. He did not see me at first. He walked with a younger couple, one of those pairs who hold hands like they are holding up one another. The woman's face had the exhausted look of a person who has cried and then run out of water to cry with. The man's knuckles were white around a folder. They went to the row like shoppers shown a display. This is the area, Troy said, motioning with a wide sweep that took in Ruth and my father and mother. Mature trees. Very tranquil. You would be alongside good people. The family is relocating. My bones went cold. The woman looked at Ruth's covered marker. I noticed Troy had thrown the moving blanket back over it, and she bent to adjust the corner where the name peeking out spelled RU in bronze. She said, very soft, I cannot buy someone's place. It feels wrong. Troy's voice turned coaxing. No one's using it. They never had a service. The loved one, she was cremated, the family changed their mind, now they are placing her at sea. This is part of the cleanup. We were given the okay to sell. The woman looked at him like she wanted to unhear. The man whispered something about time. I stepped forward then, not toward Troy, toward them. I am sorry, I said, to intrude. Are you here for the plots? The man nodded cautiously. Our son, he said, died last week. The cemetery said there is a waiting list for decent spots. We did not think we would be haggling. I put my hand up, gentle. I am sorry for your son, I said. I am a stranger, and I am going to do something forward. Would you give me your names? The woman said, Anna. The man, Jorge. There it was, the pain like a stone passed uninvited into my palm. I am Harvey, I said. And this is my wife's place. Troy finally saw me without the disguise of his intention and blanched. He tried to recover with a smile that looked sick. Harv, sir, he started, I was just. I know what you were doing, I said. And so do they. I nodded to the silver sedan. It felt theatrical, and I hated that it felt good. It took less than a minute for the two men from the AG's office to approach with badges and quiet voices. They spoke with Troy about licenses and transfers and asked for identification. They asked where his authority came from. He said, from my family, and gestured toward me like I was corpsed-up evidence. Family is in the car, too, one of the agents said, dry as paperwork. He asked if Troy had any documents to show. Troy produced a folded transfer form, a photocopy of our original deed where someone had circled my father's signature like it had just been discovered, and a notary page with my name scribbled in a slanted version of me. I took my voice recorder out of my pocket and turned it off. I wanted to throw it into the ivy like a snake. The notary's stamp was real to the untrained eye, but the commission number had been changed by one digit. Darla had prepared me to spot that trick. It looked like a 7 that had been widened to an 8. Where did you get these? I asked him, not because I needed to know but because I wanted to hear what he would do with the truth. The cemetery office prepared them, he said. They do it all the time. One of the agents lifted an eyebrow, as close to a grin as a man with a badge is allowed. We just spoke with the office yesterday, he said. They declined to participate in any private transfers without original signatures and approvals. They told us they make all such transfers in person and never for Section B, Row 3 because of a long-standing family restriction noted in the file. Would you like to try again? Troy looked at the young couple, at me, at the agents. We were just trying to help, he said, like it was a charity. I walked toward Anna and Jorge and said, as quietly as I could, you will bury your son in peace and without paying this man. I give you my word. The agent separated Troy and asked him to sit on the low stone border under the U. Darla arrived then, a slip of a woman in a teal jacket that looked like authority. She introduced herself to Anna and Jorge, to the agents, and then she took Troy's transfer papers into a clear evidence sleeve like she was sliding a curse away from us. She showed me where the signature lines had been cut and pasted. She pointed to an email address on the listing screenshot where "Memorial Plots for You" masqueraded as a business. She whispered, almost apologetic, "It is good we acted today." I think I need to talk to my daughter, I said. Not today, Darla said. Let this be official first. Family talk will be for after. They took a statement from me under the U, next to the missing vase hole, and while we spoke, a groundsman wandered over with a small box. Sir, he said, tipping his cap to me and then to the agents, I found this in the maintenance shed. It is the vase. Saw something shiny in one of the recycling bins. I figured no one would just toss one of these. He handed me the bronze cylinder. It was slightly scratched along the side where someone had crammed it into a place it did not belong. Nothing in me burned then, it cooled, hard like metal, and settled. That evening, I did not call Megan. I made a peanut butter sandwich and ate it standing at the sink because that is what men do when they have learned that sitting is not restful. I went to bed and stared at the ceiling where the little crack we had been meaning to fix mapped the shape of a river. The next morning, Megan called me. Her voice was tight, afraid. Dad, she said, Troy is saying there was some sort of misunderstanding at the cemetery. Before you hear it from someone else, he says you set him up. He says he was trying to help a couple and you embarrassed him. Is that what he says? I asked. He says you humiliated him in front of strangers, she said, and then her anger warmed enough to make her forget caution. He says you are jealous we are handling things. He says the plots were sitting unused, and we could use the money for the business. He says, Dad, he says you do not even visit Mom anymore. There is a place a father cannot go, not even to win. It is thin ice over deep water. I did not say the worst thing I could say. I said, steady, Meg, were you involved? My daughter, who once cried because she thought she had stolen a pencil by accident, went quiet. Then, I knew. I did not think he would use, her voice broke. I did not know it was Mom's. Who did you think he would sell? The words came out before I could clean them. My mother. Your grandfather. Me. Dad, she said, please do not make this worse. Worse, I said, testing the word on my tongue. I will tell you what worse looks like. Worse looks like a young couple being asked to pay cash to lay their son down while my wife's name sits under a moving blanket like something shameful. Worse looks like your husband standing with his sunglasses on in a place where he should take off his hat and his pride. Worse looks like you imagining the plots like a checking account. Please, she said, barely audible. We are drowning. The startup is not, she stopped. She did not say the word failing. Megan has always edited hope until it is just a period. I will take care of you and the children, I said, because that was still true. But I will not protect Troy. Do not do this, she said, and then, he is already furious. The police called. They made it sound, Dad, they made it sound like he dug someone up. We are not there, I said, and I believed it because I needed to, and we will not get there. She hung up without a goodbye. 2 days later, the Attorney General's office filed charges, fraud in the sale of burial rites, attempted forgery, and vandalism of a sepulchre ornament. Cemetery law looks quaint until you read the teeth. It makes a man in a blazer look like someone who has stolen from the old and the dead at once. They made a point of noting in their press release, their words, not mine, that families deserve to trust that resting places are not commodities to be flipped. Some phrases deserve brass. I tried to visit Ruth quietly the next morning. I found roses at her marker that I did not buy and a note tucked into the vase, carefully folded. It was from Anna. She wrote that they had learned of a plot in Section D, sunny, with a little slope, and that a stranger had called them, anonymous, but likely one of the agents, and told them the cemetery had a hardship fund for parents in their position. She thanked me, thanked Ruth, and said that when the grass grew and the letters filled in on their son's stone, she would lay wildflowers for Ruth, too. I put the note in my pocket and decided not to tell anyone about it. There is a special cruelty to the way small towns work. News like this runs like a river under the sidewalks. At the grocery, someone I barely knew patted my arm. At church, I saw 2 heads bend together and then straighten when I walked down the aisle. Neighbors who had not spoken to me since Ruth's wake brought pie. And there are people who, in the presence of scandal, find courage to say what they never would otherwise. Mrs. Elkins from across the street said, I never liked Troy, as if the words themselves were an accomplishment. The situation with Megan was not theatrical. It was paperwork, daycare schedules, 1,000 little flames to be fanned out without scorch. I watched Liam after school so he would not hear arguments. I drove Sophie to a birthday party so Megan could meet with a lawyer of her own. I stood by the sink again and did not eat when it was time. Tea became my hobby. Troy's bail condition said he was not to contact me except through counsel, and yet there he was 3 nights later, in my driveway in a gray t-shirt, the kind of shirt men wear when they want to look less dangerous than their intentions. He took 2 steps toward the porch and stopped at the end of the lilac shadow because he is not a fool. Harvey, he called softly. Can we talk? I should not, I said. You know that. Please, he said. I did not mean for it to get this far. Where did you mean it to go? I asked. Halfway to my wife. Halfway to breaking the promise my father made when he wrote, no exceptions on a piece of paper like it was a prayer. His voice changed. We needed the money, he said, and there, finally, was a truth, ragged and inert. My parents, he added, as if these 2 words were a litany, are getting older. Their plots are apart, across the cemetery, and I thought. You thought you would rearrange the dead like furniture, I said. So your parents could have a better view. He flinched. We were going to sell 2 and then buy 2 together for them. It was a fix. I did not think. You did not think, I said, and however much I resent platitudes, I leaned on this one. You did not think of my wife. You did not think of our family's word. You did not think of the couple with the dead son. You did not think of the law. The only thing you thought of was turning Rose into dollars. He spread his hands like a man pleading with a bank teller. I will make it right, he said. I will apologize. I will pay the money back. You did not get any money, I said. That was the point. And then I did something I did not expect to do, something Ruth would have called a kindness that stings. I told him my revenge, step by clear step, not because I wanted the spectacle, no one over 70 should crave a climax, but because I needed him to understand it was not rage but design. Tomorrow morning, I said, I am moving the interment rights for the remaining family plots into a new trust. The trust will have 3 trustees, me, Darla, and a representative from the cemetery board. No transfer will happen without 2 signatures. The remainder plots will be assigned as follows, 1 to Liam, 1 to Sophie, held until they are 50, and if they move away and want to relinquish them, they go to the Veterans Burial Association to be assigned to a spouse of a veteran who has no family. The plot between my mother and father remains empty. Do not drop your eyebrows, I am not morbid, for the sake of symmetry. The plot next to my wife remains mine. The ones you thought of as excess will be donated to the cemetery's hardship fund in memory of Ruth. That fund will be administered by people who are not us. He opened his mouth, closed it. You cannot, he started. I can, I said, and I have the papers drawn up. I leaned forward on the porch rail. As for your parents, the cemetery has already approved a policy change for Section B, no new interments unless they are blood or marriage of my father's line. That change, printed, sits in their office. Your parents will be fine buried under whatever tree will take them, but they will not be side by side in my row. And the in-between plots in their chosen section, the ones they desire to be together. I bought one of those yesterday in my own name and assigned it to a Gold Star mother who asked for no fuss. You will not pry it from her. You will attend their funerals like a son and you will stand where you are told. His cheeks reddened. That is cruel, he said. Cruel, I replied, is a moving blanket on my wife's name. We stood in the quiet like we were listening for wind. He looked past me into the house he had always wanted to see as inventory, the roll-top desk, the mahogany frames, the little brass key cups on the mantel. He took one step backward, then another, as if leaving dignified might turn back a tide. I loved her, he said suddenly, looking at my front window where a photo of Ruth in a red dress kept company with dust. Your wife. I did love her. You do not love the dead by selling them, I said, and closed the door gently because slamming is for the young. The court moved half as fast as grief and twice as slow as anger. Troy pled to a lesser charge of attempted fraud and forgery, his lawyer arguing that no money changed hands, no bodies were disturbed, and the vase, somehow, had wandered. The judge, a woman with iron gray hair and the kind of patience that is patience as policy, gave him 2 years of probation, a fine that would sting a man with lean accounts, and 100 hours of community service. We learned the service would be at Maple Grove. Fate and paperwork made a comedy of his choices. For 3 months, on Saturdays, Troy carried stones and seeded grass and righted small sinking markers under the eye of the groundskeeper who had found the vase. I went once to watch, because I am not pure. He raked with his jaw set and his back straight. When he paused for water, he looked to Section B and did not dare to cross the road. Megan says he has stopped wearing sunglasses altogether. She moved into my house with the kids for a while. I kept my routine starch straight and she bruised into the order like a person stepping into boots too big. She is seeing a counselor, talking to a pastor, counting backwards from 10 when she stands at the sink. I learned how to make French toast Sophie's way, extra vanilla, and that Liam needs his shoelaces threaded to the last eyelet or he wriggles during math. I listened to Megan talk about her guilt until I had to tell her that guilt is not a plan and that I have no appetite for confession not married to repair. It was not a mistake I made by myself, she said, one night at the kitchen table with a pencil and a budget. But I knew enough to say stop. I did not. You will say stop next time, I said. The first time. She nodded, which is a small thing that in a family can be the size of a cathedral. We had a ceremony at Maple Grove a month after the case settled. Not a reburial, or any of that pageantry. Just a dedication of the hardship plots in Ruth's name. We set 2 new markers, simple bronze plates with blank lines for names not yet known, and at the bottom of each, in small letters, we had engraved, "There is room." Anna and Jorge came, holding hands across their own grief. The groundskeeper brought lemonade. Darla stood with her hands clasped and looked like a person on the first day of summer. We placed the bronze vase back in its screw hole, 2 tough turns and then that final snug twist that says, "There." I slid a single gardenia into it, Ruth's favorite when we were young because they felt like porcelain and smelled like a clean tablecloth. After everyone left, I sat on the bench I had installed that week. It faces the row but sits at an angle, because true grief almost always looks from the side. The bench has a small plaque, "For those who kept the promise." I felt Ruth beside me in the old ordinary way, which is to say I did not feel her at all but I adjusted my shoulder because she would have leaned into it. Birds made their unremarkable sounds because I had done something that satisfied no one outside our small circle but felt like a flag planted in the exact right dirt. There is an epilogue that belongs to the living. Weeks later, a letter from the cemetery board came, "Dear Mr. Leary, that is me, we have updated our transfer policies to include your family's trust model. We are grateful for the reminder that burial rights are not simply tradable assets but promises. We have also launched the Ruth Leary Fund for Interment Assistance, seeded by your donation, contributions from our staff, and anonymous gifts we believe came from your church and several others." I read the letter twice because it is not every day that a place more used to sorrow than repair learns a new verb. And there is an epilogue that belongs to the justice you can touch. Troy's parents ended up choosing plots under a maple in Section E. They are not adjacent. There is a path between them. When they pass, which is the way of all of us, families will walk that path and pause between to look at the sky like it is taller there. This is not cruelty. It is design. It is the shape of a lesson I expect to live longer than my bones. On a Sunday not long after the bench went in, Liam asked me why we cared so much about dirt. We were sitting at my kitchen table with a puzzle, the kind with 1,000 pieces that makes your eyes scratch. He had just placed a corner and looked proud. "Not the dirt," I said. "The promise." "What is the promise?" he asked. "That we say where we will be," I said, "and then we are there. That when you look for your people, you can find them, and they have not been moved because someone had a plan that needed a little extra money. It is small, but it is ours." He nodded in the solemn way of children who are used to being told big things. Then he said, "Can I have the plot next to you?" And then looked horrified by his own words. "Not soon," he added. "I just mean." I touched his hair. "When you are 50, I said, we will talk. For now, you owe me 3 puzzle pieces of sky." The last time I saw Troy at the cemetery, he was raking the narrow strip near the road, sweat making a dark V on his shirt. He paused and, for the first time, took off his hat to pass our row. He did not look at me. He looked at Ruth. I cannot know what he thought. I only know that if a man learns reverence in a place he tried to inventory, the world has shifted a fraction into a truer shape. On my next visit, I brought a new bronze vase for the markers in the hardship section. I tightened them myself, the way a stonemason's son learns to tighten anything, slow, even, until the metal tells you it is enough. Then I sat on the bench. I read Ruth the crossword clues. One across, bond of honor, 5 letters. I did not need the grid to answer. I had already written it in bronze.
Hello everyone, and thank you for watching. I truly hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel to help support the creation of more stories like this. Have a great day or evening.